Hi, Salina.
Hello.
And hi, everyone. Welcome to a new Sweet Tea and TV book club. I should have counted what iteration of book club this is. It's like our fourth or fifth book club.
I think it's 5. I did something similar and really stalled out in my count.
Oh, good. Good. See, this is why I didn't even bother.
But it'd be Delta, Dixie Carter's daughter, and then we did the Golden Girls book. So 5.
Okay. I believe you.
That seems reasonable.
Oh, you said Delta. Okay, yeah, 5. So anywho, this time we're talking all things Sex and the City and not the TV show, which we've been covering for, 6 or 7 episodes. Instead, we're talking about the book that started it all. And we're going to call this segment Sex and the City Unfiltered because I feel like we removed a filter with this book. So we're going to cover some business first. There was a little bit of a polish on the show that didn't exist in the book. We'll get there. We're going to cover some business. We'll talk about the book itself, its style, its structure, how it is or isn't different than the show. We're also going to talk a little bit about Candace Bushnell, and then we'll get into the juice. What is this book all about? Sound good?
Okay, let's get into the juice and other stuff.
The juice comes later.
Later.
This is the crust. Okay. Your favorite part. So before Sex and the City was a glossy friendship-driven show, it was basically a newspaper column turned book. And not even a full book. It's more a series of snapshots of a very specific portion of the New York City dating scene. And this wasn't even all of her columns either, I don't think. I think it was just a select few.
Yeah, how could it be?
I don't know.
Yeah.
So it reads less like narrative storytelling and maybe fittingly given that Candace is a journalist, like journalism. It was kind of more of a peek into what people were saying and doing. If the show feels like a romantic comedy or what do you call it, a rom-com dram?
Rom-com dram, yeah.
Rom-com dram. This is more social anthropology. So Candace herself frames the book as, quote, an unsentimental examination of relationships and mating habits in New York City in the introduction. Does that feel true to you?
I think so, because I don't like an outsider looking in for sure, but it's weird because she's also an insider. Yeah. So I think that for me was a little almost narratively confusing as I was reading it.
Okay.
Because it just took me a minute to acclimate. Once I acclimated, it was fine, but because that tone shift was so different than the show. It just hers is more omniscient in the show or something.
Yes.
And here she's kind of in it, but kind of out of it, But I definitely like the sociological aspect because it feels more when I think of journalism, I think of reverse pyramid. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And this is and it's all about taking things that are scattered and making sense of them. And to me, this felt scattered.
Okay. Stylistically, I would say there are parts of it that are a little funny, but it's definitely not warm. There's not a warm blanket piece of this. There's definitely also a bit of distance, almost like you're observing people instead of being in this experience with them and rooting for them. I think you just mentioned this a little bit, though. Sometimes it can kind of fluctuate a little bit. I like to look at reviews after reading these things because I kind of want to orient my thoughts to what other people were thinking. Sometimes I walk away with a really firm stance on something and then I read a review and I'm like, you know what? Maybe that was short-sighted on my part, or maybe I wasn't being fair. So I did flag 2 reviews that I wanted to share with you. One was Kirkus Magazine. I had to look at Kirkus because I thought I couldn't figure out who this source was. It is a legitimate book review service. Are you familiar with this?
I'm not.
Okay. So it's legit. It's not just some random it's not Kirk from Gilmore Girls. This is real.
Well, I can't see the spelling. So my very first thought was have I been saying circus wrong?
Your whole life. Ringling Brothers Kirkus. Oh my God. I wish I could gaslight you. Oh, I wish I could gaslight you into starting to say it. No. Kirkus, Kirk. Okay. So it summarizes the book as often funny and occasionally bleak. This is a captivating look at the age of uninnocence in a city in which the glittering diversions don't quite make up for the fact that, quote, Cupid has flown the coop. And then this is Time Magazine's review from 1996. And I would say this probably summarizes my thoughts.
Oh, okay.
Devotees of Candace Bushnell, a journalist who looks like Suzanne Summers with a Polo Club membership, approach her writing the way they might a car wreck or a Peter Greenaway movie. They know it might repel, but they're forced to have a look. For 2 years, Bushnell's column, Sex and the City, has appeared regularly in the New York Observer, a salmon-colored weekly paper doted on by Manhattan's media elite, offering bleakly funny reportage on dating rituals among the city's most physically and financially privileged. Now, 25 of her pieces have been compiled in a book also titled Sex and the City, which should serve to dissuade any single person in America from ever moving to Manhattan.
I have so many thoughts about that. Like, the first thing is, like, if this was a male author, would we have commented on his looks before we got into anything?
Interesting.
And the fact that they're attractive. Like, because I am assuming that the writer of this thinks that Suzanne Summers is, like, not a terrible thing, not a terrible person to look at. So that was actually the very first thing that hit me.
That might take me a minute to sit with because, and only because, I do get the sense that image and looks were a big part of Candace's story.
I agree.
Like,
but it's the very first thing they commented on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's number one. I don't disagree because it does feel like a car wreck. The one thing that maybe we're not saying here. Oh, sorry.
Is that the end of our book club?
I mean, it feels like a car wreck. Like, it's like not great things happening. Okay. There wasn't like, I didn't leave this and be like, oh, you know, not even a little bit.
You didn't leave it thinking you want to make a TV show about it?
I think I'm still like parsing through my feelings on it, to be honest, it is very gritty. It like, but what I mean is like, it's that thing that you can't turn away from. Although I do think I might've just accidentally like shared some of my innards there, but like, it like there's that aspect, but the thing that like I think saying like it's sociological is making me it's like a little higher brow than it is, because if I think about a New Yorker, and this is popular to New Yorker, it's a little bit like a very well written gossip rag.
Yes.
Because this is about people that either are named or they're anonymous, and people are probably like, I'm thinking Bridgerton and I'm thinking Gossip Girl, and this thing of you're like trying to figure out who these people are, because you're in the town. And what have we said about Sex and the City all the time? It's like actually a small town, like New York City. And so all these people like want to know who these people are, because what do they say? They are financially and physically privileged.
Yeah.
And that is always who is popular in this world.
And that's why I said that it's a very specific piece of the scene. It is referring to one very specific scene, but I hear you 100%. And I think that is probably the fairest comp that I've heard for this book is a gossip rag, because it's very much how it feels. It feels like a certain group of people that a certain group of people knows.
Yeah, and that's why I'm having a little trouble calling it journalism, I think, but also it is well written. Like, I do think it is it's like highbrow for gossip, and I would call it lowbrow for journalism.
It's funny you say that, because in the TV show, we keep talking about Carrie as this writer. She's a journalist. She works on this column. I've had a very similar thought where
about the journalist piece.
Yes, like she's watching her friends and reporting on her friends and her personal life. It's a diary, is what it is.
It's different, right? And I think what is different to me about the narrative between these two is like that you don't get in the show, because in the show it doesn't it does say that she's in this world, but like when it's still this on the street style interviews or whatever, even if it is like a character name that appears in the book, you don't sense a relationship there. It does feel like I ran into this guy in the gym and maybe we occasionally see each other, and like it doesn't feel gossipy in the show the way that it did in the book.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I think it's weird. It's not intimate at all, and yet so intimate. I don't know how she struck that chord.
The same characters keep showing up. And then,
It's
like
very
you
fascinating.
said, the connection, she weaves this connection for how she knows these people. And
Mhm.
like, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think we can get into that more in a little while.
Okay.
I wanted to share, so those are broad strokes about the book with a little bit of specificity, but I wanted to talk a little bit about Candace Bushnell, and that is
Mhm.
how she pronounces her last name. That was actually reported in something I read. It's Bushnell.
Bushnell.
I wanted to talk about her a little bit because this is our chance to talk about it. She was
Mhm.
born in Connecticut. She later attended Rice University and NYU. She didn't do well at Rice, so she moved to NYU. I thought this was kind of a neat fact. Her father was one of the inventors of the air-cooled hydrogen fuel cell used in the Apollo space missions of the 1960s.
Oh,
Isn't that so
wow.
random?
And specific.
Yeah, yeah. So being from Connecticut and having a rocket scientist dad and a business-minded mom, I read that she was like a travel agent, I think. I feel like that kind of sets the table for an assumption that Candace is of extreme wealth. And so you sort of read this book and she's in a very specific slice of New York society. And then you hear this stuff about her family and you think, well, of course she is. She's wealthy. Actually, I read quite a few things that kill that assumption. In fact, she said her father believed strongly that the Bushnell way is to make it on your own. So she has said a few times, like, he didn't just hand her a fortune or anything. She landed in New York City in the late 70s. She was 19. She was dreaming of becoming an actor. She struggled with that for a little while. That didn't work out. So she ultimately turned to writing because if you can't act, why not write? Her first literary effort was a children's book that she sold to Simon and Schuster, but it was never published. Side note, that made me think of that episode where she goes to meet Big's ex-wife.
I know. It's about little Kathy who smokes
Little
cigarettes
Kathy.
and goes wherever she wants.
Wait, so it was never published. That could have been her story. Little
Maybe.
Kathy. Um,
Funny.
she wrote as a freelancer for a lot of years, struggling to make ends meet. I read several anecdotes that she spent various periods of time without a consistent home. And when she did finally land somewhere, she had to sleep on a foam mattress on the floor. She would finally begin writing her famous column, which was intended as a comedy, in 1994 for the New York Observer. Side note, the New York Observer was a weekly alternative newspaper established in 1987. Today, it's fully digital. It went fully digital in, I don't know, like 2019 or something, 2012. There's like a Trump tie-in. Jared Kushner is involved. I got tired researching that, but it's still a thing.
That's like a nice sum up for 2026, isn't it?
Yeah.
I
Like
just got tired.
there's a Trump tie-in and I got tired researching.
And you know that's just not going to lead anywhere that you want to go. You know
It's
what I'm
not.
saying?
It's not. So, yeah, that's it. Her column was based on stories and observations from her real life, which we've kind of talked about, and her real social circle. I read a piece that interviewed someone about what they knew of Candace's life in those years in New York City, and they said, that article said, part of Bushnell's scrounging, including living in her wealthy friend's office space while writing her column. They further described Bushnell's lifestyle of, quote, balancing small paychecks with access to glamour and wealth. And I see that as a little bit of the intersection between Candace and Carrie. So we often
Mm-hmm.
saw Carrie hitting up fancy media parties, running with wealthy friends like Miranda and Samantha. Big, she dated Big, who's obviously wealthy. She's running around in $500 shoes. We also know she had no savings and struggled to afford her apartment. So this feels very pulled from Candace's life. And Candace has said that Carrie is her and she is Carrie. She introduced Carrie as a friend in the column, but we know now that that was a pseudonym she gave herself so her parents wouldn't know of all her indiscretions as she described them in the column. Candace has
I mean, not really hers.
Do I need to
Hers
pause
are
for you?
benign. Yeah, man, I'm like, maybe. Hers are benign, but there are things.
Yeah. Candace
She's
has,
just a party girl.
yeah. Yes. There was a lot of drugs too.
Mm.
A lot of
Yeah, you
drugs.
may not want your parents to read about that.
Yeah. Candace has said that she identified with the Carrie of seasons 1 and 2 on the show, but less so in the later seasons. In one interview, she specifically said that Carrie's gallivanting with Mr. Big, who was based on a real person, Ron Galati, a bigwig publishing executive in New York City. But Carrie gallivanting with him during his marriage was the exact moment she felt the connection with the character falling apart. She says that's something she never would have done. Little more backstory. Candace also freelanced for Vogue during her time writing the column. In fact, one of those assignments was to fly to LA. When you described this LA episode to me, that reminded me of this, to write a profile about Darren Star. So they had this chance meeting from this assignment. He would later move to New York City. They became friends, and that's how they started conceptualizing the TV show. I didn't know this until this point in my research, but ABC was also interested in the show Sex and the City.
And what a different show that would have been. Right?
And what a different show that would have been. That's what I really sat with.
So as I understand it too, early on, someone was interested in turning it into a movie. So there was all kinds of interest. And it, like, I just want to say, like, some of the things that you're saying around the years there. Okay. So it's funny how, like, there's this long lag, right? Like late 70s to early to mid 90s before something happens.
Yeah.
And then she starts writing this call. So she's like, I don't want to say languish, but she's been trying to get her footing for like 15, 16 years. Then 94 hits. By 96, she has the book. By 98, there's the TV series. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a very tight timeline compared to that first, like, entry point into everything that she's trying to do. So I don't know.
This is sort of a corollary to that, but one of my favorite things to see whenever it pops up on social media, or like I'll find an article about it, is how successful some women don't become until they hit their 40s. And some of the most successful women hit their creative stride, they hit their business stride, whatever it is, it happens around the 40s.
We're going to make it.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying.
We just got to do this podcast for 16 years. And
or no, we're at 40 now. We're at 40. That's the key. It's not the time. It's the age.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, because I've already been put in much more than 16 years at this point. Not the podcast, but, you know.
Life.
Life, yeah. All right.
All right.
Time then, Nikki. Get ready.
I know, it's coming. So since this is my chance to talk about Candace, possibly my last, I wanted to add a couple final points about her. She obviously moved on from Sex and the City after those first few seasons, but she has continued to work. From the post-Sex and the City era, couple highlights, she's written a handful of novels, including Lipstick Jungle and The Carrie Diaries, both of which were adapted for TV. Another piece, One Fifth Avenue, has also been optioned by ABC for a new show. Also worth saying, she was married from 2002 to 2012 to a principal ballet dancer. Their divorce was either caused by, or at least exacerbated by, reports of infidelity on his part. That made me think of The Russian.
Oh, how interesting.
I know Baryshnikov. Is that right? Okay. He, the man, was a ballet dancer and not a ballet dancer in the show. But it was interesting to me that there was that parallel.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Hilarious.
Record, I have, well, not that kind of funny. I have read Lipstick Jungle. I have it.
Oh, okay.
And I read it because it was by her and Sex and the City and all of that. And it's a pretty good book. And then I watched the show too.
Oh, okay.
Wasn't Sex and the City, but it had Brooke Shields, and I love Brooke Shields.
Yeah. So. Okay. Maybe I'll borrow the book from you. Real quick question for you. Do you think knowing all of that about Candace, knowing that a lot of the book was based on her social circles, do you think that makes the stories more compelling, or does it make you uncomfortable? I'll say that it makes me so sad. The book showcases to me an entire society that feels devoid of emotion and real connection with one another. The drug use, like I said, there's a lot of drug use, like casual drug use happening, which I know also is a little bit of the 90s of it all, but like just throwing out the word Coke, just like it's nothing, is just whatever. The relationships all seem very surface level and based on some really superficial things. And the friendships are nowhere near as deep as they are in the show. So for me, it makes it all very uncomfortable. I feel like the book left me feeling like overall super sad, knowing that's based on real life. Like, woof, rough times in the city.
Rough times in the city. That's great. Oh my God. Is that what we should call this episode?
Should it be Rough Times in the City? Maybe it should be.
I think it should. Yeah. So I definitely didn't read this and think, today I feel really good about humanity.
Right.
I did find it compelling, but more like the Dave Chappelle stand up where he talks about missing the Confederate flag because he knew what was coming a mile away.
Oh, okay.
And so for me, like, yes, please tell me exactly who these people are so I know what to do should I ever encounter one in the wild.
Ah, yeah.
But today, I think a lot of people would hide these behaviors. That's why I'm mentioning that, especially
Okay.
like some of the like, for me, what came up over and over again, and I can't tell if I'm harping on it or if it's really as profoundly there as I feel it. Maybe you can tell me. Is this like what I mean? Underground is like some of this like interest in underage girls.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, this returned and returned a few times for me, and I found
Yeah.
it very upsetting.
Yeah.
Like some of these people that Carrie interacts with, they're giving some real Epstein file energy, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but it is very challenging in 2026 to read that and not go, what the f?
Yeah. Good
It was
call.
hard.
Good call. Um, so then maybe kind of on that note, does it change how you judge the characters knowing that they're not entirely fictional? So like, okay, we have a Samantha, but it's not the same Samantha. We have a Miranda,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not the same Miranda. We have a Charlotte, but it's not the same Charlotte. But we know Carrie is Candace. And so in part, some of these characters are based on real people. Does that make you judge them a little harder?
So not so much the characters that we know, because like Samantha, for instance, is a stronger one that shows up. Like, but having seen the show many times and now reading the book and putting together the modelizers, for instance, are real people. Like, that's tough. That's a tough look.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so like, and what I'm saying, like with Samantha, though, like she shows up, but like she to me is such like a tangential character.
Yeah.
She's not like a repeat. I mean, she is, but like that's like one of the strongest, most prominent figures that also factors in the show. And like, I know three things about her,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
or the one guy that said, yeah, he says, come on, I've always fantasized about being with a 16-year-old. Okay. So like, that's the kind of thing where, yeah, I'm going to judge that.
Yeah.
But the people that we came to know and love, not so much. Like, I will have things to say eventually when we get around to these areas about like Stanford and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely felt like this was different. I think he was more prominent in the story than I was expecting.
Yeah.
But like I I don't know, like in any of this I felt like a lot of heart. And that might not be the point, but those
Yeah.
are the kinds of things that I would be drawn to
Yeah.
typically.
Okay. Fair enough. So I want to talk really quickly about some of the biggest differences between Sex and the City, the book, and Sex and the City, the show. So we'll talk about Carrie versus Carrie, the friendship dynamics, the men in relationships, and then a little bit about the tone. So in the book, we're introduced to Carrie as a friend of Candace. She's just introduced as another person Candace is observing rather than the observer. So instead of experiencing the world through Carrie, we're kind of observing her the same way we observe everyone else. Obviously, we know the show flips that. Carrie is the observer, and Carrie becomes the heartbeat of the show. On TV, we are Carrie. In the book, Carrie is the case study, the thing to watch. So I was curious if you found Carrie more likable in the book or in the show.
I first of all, I just want to cop to the fact that I was very confused by the narration.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and maybe it's because Sex in the City looms so large in my head
Sure.
for the Carrie narration, and so I was like, who is narrating the story? And I didn't even, and like for the first X amount of pages, I was like, I'm like, are we following Carrie? I can't
Mm.
even tell because we're bouncing around so much from one person's story to the next. Like, eventually she comes through as the through line.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it took like almost a third of the book for me to be like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of that is because it's a quick read and it's like, I didn't really have time to like go back and like be like, wait a second, there wasn't that.
Well, and because this is not the format you were intended to consume this content in. It was a
Right.
newspaper article column
Right.
that you were supposed to
Right.
read week by week.
Yeah, so it does feel like a little bit like you feel the stitching a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is fine. But like I thought about Carrie versus Carrie. I thought about this a lot as I read the book. I think that season 1 Carrie is much closer to the book, maybe even some of season 2. So it's good to hear what you said about Candace Bushnell saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
To me, book Carrie is edgier. But like also season 1 and season 2 Carrie is a little edgier. She's not quite soft in those first seasons. Um and TV Carrie becomes softer. Now, that could be because we get some more time with her, way more time, because it's from her perspective. You know, it could be the flatness of the narrative versus the dimensionality of the series for me.
Mm-hmm.
It is most likely, I think, the softness of Sarah Jessica Parker.
Yeah.
So I just think that she brought a whole different side to her. Have you listened to Candace Bushnell at all then?
Yes.
Okay.
A little bit.
Because I don't think she's as warm as like a Sarah Jessica Parker, but I found her to be much more warm than the Carrie of the book.
Okay.
It's sort of my take.
Okay. So I definitely think TV Carrie felt more sympathetic, but I think it might be because we're living inside of her head versus judging her from a distance.
Yeah.
Like observing a late 30s person struggling to decide what to make of their life and still living sort of a party girl lifestyle. It's just that for me, it's hard to sympathize with someone like that and to really root for that person. So I think being able to go through that with Carrie and live through it with her just makes her, for me, a little bit more likable. I also just feel like Carrie in the show is just a little more wholesome and a little more palatable, which is probably the TV of it all, but maybe it's the Sarah Jessica Parker effect too. Like she is warmer and she is more enjoyable. But like the straight up coke usage, like we see Carrie smoke pot one time and that's really the extent of it. She just feels more wholesome to me, and the grittiness is just something that's not really going to resonate. I was curious if you see Carrie on TV as an upgrade or a fantasy version of what we saw in the book.
Yeah. I think I just go back to like heart.
Yeah.
Like that's there's just a little bit more of that. I think also it's just hard not to think about the Sarah Jessica Parker of it, knowing that she was not going to tolerate certain things.
Yeah.
We know for sure she doesn't tolerate the nudity. That's just
Yeah.
something that she absolutely from the very beginning said that she was not going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that like you feel that in the show, and I also wonder if that's true with the drug version.
Yeah.
And I think also like fantasy or upgrade, it's not so much that to me as it's like, I mean, it is, but it's also like we just get more time with TV Carrie. We get more time to know her, and it's not these snippets, and it is very polished. And I don't think the book is very polished. I don't think it's supposed to be. I think they wanted it to be that way. I think it is what it's supposed to be. It's just for me, I don't have the same level of connection to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. On the note of connection, I wanted to talk a little bit about the friendship dynamics and the supporting cast. So, the book is this observation of this social ecosystem. So like this system, this network of people, not a core friend group. The women exist in the book. We just talked about this, but not in that same core four way.
Yeah. Okay. I thought you meant just women generally.
Women just they
book, but like also yes.
So again, we meet Charlotte. She's a sex-obsessed journalist from the UK. Miranda is a cable executive. Samantha is a movie producer. It feels like this rotating cast of friends or acquaintances, social connections who drift in and out at these different points in time. They're definitely not positioned as like friendship soulmates. They're part of the same scene, but they're not like emotionally anchoring one another. Obviously, we've talked at length that the show is a big contrast to that. It really builds that inner circle and makes friendship the emotional backbone. The show is taking that observational piece and making it really personal. I was curious about friendship as the romance in the TV show, and why maybe it feels like the show emphasized that sort of thing versus the book. Why didn't they lean into that in the book? So for me, I wonder if maybe the book was more reflective of how big city friendships can work. They tend to be fluid, situational, transactional in a way. Like you run in this circle and you run into each other. So this is the friendship du jour, or, versus this very deep connected friendship. But
I don't know. But if it is, then that's one of the sadder parts for me.
well, I think that's why this book hit me in a really dark place, because I think that was the point. I think that was the point. This is all about network. It's all about like who you know and where you know them from and what they bring to the table versus what we experienced in the show, which is these people who are there for you all the time.
Right. And I mean, these friendships just seem like, especially with the women, like, I mean, like Charlotte, like whatever, does she even have the name Charlotte in the book? I don't think so. She does. Okay. Yeah. But it's like, it's not Charlotte though.
No.
You know what I'm saying? It's not Charlotte at all. That name is tossed out there. Miranda is Magda, like, or Magda, like I believe, like it's Magda, not.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why they brought the name Magda in eventually.
Yeah.
With like,
but there's also a Miranda.
Oh, that's
but it's
true.
not Miranda.
Right. Very confusing.
Yeah.
So
for people who watched the TV show before they read the book.
Oh my God. I was like, what is happening right now? But either or, like all these things, like they don't even mention all of those characters when she does her little summary at the end, which felt like very movie. Like, this is where this person is now. This is where this person is now, you know? And they didn't even bring all those women back up again.
Yeah.
Like half of them. Because they're not a star in the show.
They're fluid.
You know what I'm saying?
They're just relevant when they're relevant.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not grounded. Yeah. And now, if you're like talking about where she was in her life at that time, Carrie, because she has admitted that she's Carrie and she said that, but we don't know. You know what I'm saying? So this isn't any kind of like whatever on Candace Bushnell. I don't know. And it is not my job nor my right to comment on her life. But there was an ungrounding in that book that I think is synonymous with the person that we're following. Yeah. And I think that makes sense narratively. Although it makes for like a twisty read. Yeah. Which may or may not work for you. I don't know.
Because again, it wasn't meant to be consumed that way.
Yes. I actually feel like in terms of relationships, though, the relationship that seems the strongest for Carrie is Stanford. Yes. We spend the most amount of time with him, but I still feel like their relationship seems very superficial.
Did you know that Candace has an actual Stanford in her life?
It wouldn't surprise me.
Well, so he was her, I want to say accountant or business partner or something. They were very close. And he claims that he was cut out of the TV deal, even though he was part of conceptualizing the TV deal. And so he took her to court, and their court case drew out for years.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Okay. Huh. And maybe that's why, I guess that's why you get the narrative shift in the show. Because he is like all through this, and he is in this show quite a bit, but nothing like any of the other women. Yeah. Nothing. And I don't like, it is an ensemble show, and it is not, because it is also Carrie's show. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, she is the star. Like, she gets the most time. Everybody else's story is like a compliment.
Yeah. So speaking of Stanford, maybe we can talk for a second about the other men on the show. I mean, in the book, and relationships. So the book really focuses on patterns of relationships and power within relationships. It's definitely not covering like individual love stories. There's no like, there is a big story that's in there, but like we're not following a Miranda and Steve, for instance. We're talking about these patterns of dating styles and things like that. I think that's the anthropological vibe of it all.
That's so good.
Observational. It's not trying to tell sweeping love stories. It's more interested in like the tactics of dating in this world that we're looking at.
That's fair.
men are definitely not deeply explored individuals. They are really there to show these different dynamics and to lay out things like how does status play into relationships? How do money play into these relationships? I was curious. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to say about men here is when I say that the men aren't as deeply explored, we do learn more about Big, I feel like, in the book than we did in the show in terms of his like personal backstory. Like there's this anecdote at the end while they're in maybe Aspen when Big tells Carrie that he grew up poor, he was in the military for a point in time. Like we don't get that historical context for Big in the show that we do in the book. I was curious which version, the TV version or the book version, feels more honest about men to you.
Oh my God. I hope the book's not honest. I don't know. I don't know. I think, oh my God. I just like, if that really, okay, first of all, we're talking about a very specific kind of man, right? And we've had to talk about this again. Like, what have we, like, what was the biggest complaint about the show? It was very white. It was all wealthy men. Yeah. Like it was all wealthy people or like by and far or people who were allowed into that social stratosphere. And if we're talking about a certain kind of wealth, like I just like I don't know that people even understand sometimes the type of wealth that we might be talking about is one that we do not interplay with.
It's not part of my orbit.
That's right. They don't know who we are. We don't know who they are. They don't understand the price of a gallon of milk. I don't either because I don't drink milk, but I know the milk alternatives are expensive. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm just like, it's just different. And so I think like I would be wary to extrapolate that book to all men. I think it is a sector of men. And so there are aspects that really like, also, like you said, like you felt sad after this. One of the ones that really stuck out to me when I think about the men part was the one, and it does relate to an episode that was done much softer on Sex in the City called Secret Sex. Okay. And these were the two men in the book who were like, we were dating these women that we didn't think were attractive enough for us, but we were having great sex and we were actually in love with them, but they screwed the whole thing up because they didn't think these women were attractive enough. This does happen in the first season. It's connected more into the Big piece of it because Carrie thinks that she's become Big secret sex.
Oh, sure.
Okay. And then she runs into an old friend who's kind of like a comp that like combines those two stories of those two men. I do think there's a reality about that because men are so visually driven, you know? So like to talk about like the truth of it, is that more of a truth? And so, or like, but we're also talking about a different time period. I like to think that on the whole, men have progressed since the 90s. You know, I don't know that's always the case, Nikki. But like, I know that your husband is a good man. And I know that my husband is a good man. I know that we did good picking. And I feel very confident that like my husband doesn't feel like this. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The things that I read in this story. But he also has a completely different background and he's about 30 years younger.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think it's like hard to make those comparisons. I really hope whatever type of male was in this story dies off. That's what I'm going to say.
Goes the way of the dodo.
I'm telling you, I was very displeased with the men in this book. I would like, can I speak to Big real quickly?
Yeah.
Because I think it's very interesting. Yes, we got that snapshot of him, but I do not think like the things about his childhood, but they were like a sentence, you know, maybe a paragraph. It didn't ramble on. It didn't go on. This book is very tight.
It is that. Almost like a newspaper column.
Almost like it. So he is all through the book, but I would not call him a well-drawn character at all.
Yeah.
I didn't really know much about him.
Yeah.
We do know that both versions, book and TV, he's wealthy. We know that he's nicknamed Big.
Yeah.
We know that he smokes cigars and he has trouble connecting and committing. I found book Big to be not as suave as TV Big. That could be the Chris Noth of it all. I don't know.
Yeah.
Chris Noth had presence and charisma in that part. That like maybe the real life Big had. Whatever was his name, Gelati?
Ron.
Like,
Yep. Gelati.
Gelato.
That's it.
But I mean, like I have read about him before, and he had a lot of presence, and so that was probably just good picking and everything from that aspect. But the one thing that I did find very interesting is like Book Big got pretty needy right there at the end, which is something we didn't really see Big do until several seasons in of the TV show, and it was like a moment. It was a snippet in time that you have not had the pleasure of seeing when he has a heart issue at one point. But yeah, I think that just all really stood out to me because I don't think that you can even address this book without talking about the big of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to talk about tone, but I think we've touched on the tone a lot. I think I want to skip to the social commentary and the 90s context because you just referenced this and thinking about this being 30 years, well, more than 30 years ago at this point. So it's like there's a very specific time period we're talking about. This is pre-dating apps. At this point in time, dating is social circles, bars, random connections you meet out in the city. So the book is not following people through their like character arcs necessarily and their dating arcs, although there's some of it. There's like a thread that weaves through for some of the characters. But it's more about how this system of dating works. So like one thing that stuck out to me is how contained the dating world felt. Like everything is running through this same social circle. They're all at the same parties. They're all at the same bars. They all know the same people. There's no like swiping and like world of endless options. It's this smaller interconnected scene. So your dating pool is your network, and your network then determines your opportunities for dating. You sort of mentioned this maybe in our main episode this week. Like it's the difference of a small rural network of 5 people, and those are your opportunities, or New York City, where it's endless. But
except here it's not.
It's still limited. It's still limited to this network. So it feels kind of hard to me for you and I to sit here and compare what the dating world is like today because we're not in it. We're not experiencing dating today. But I do think there's something to kind of talk about in whether some of this still exists today or if dating is just so different. So are people dating within their social networks today just differently? Maybe not meeting up for drinks, but they're more texting, or are we casting that wider net with like dating apps and things like that? For me, and this is how I would sort of answer the question, I feel like the tactics of the book are very 90s. I do know someone that's dating right now in their like late 30s, early 40s, and it is all apps and texting. Their most recent relationship was a person they had no business meeting. Like they would never have intersected with this person. They have different friends. They live in like a different social stratosphere, but they met because they were on this app. So like it gives you an opportunity for your network to be a little different. And in the book, it feels very 90s to me. I don't know if any of that resonates with you, sticks out to you.
Yeah, I mean the lack of technology, it for me, I think it did 2 things. It weirdly ages it, and it keeps it from being aged.
Ah, okay.
So by that I mean like, what if like one of them had been on a BlackBerry?
Yeah.
Which the BlackBerry,
which we had in the show, that popped up at times in the show. At one point, there was a pager introduced.
Right, and so I think like that would have dated it terribly. And so sometimes like the omission can be helpful.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be glaring. It just sort of depends on the circumstance. Like if like there are things that technology aids us to do that would like shape shift a plot point. Maybe we had that happen a lot in the show.
Yeah.
Because like Carrie didn't have a phone, but like, I think that was the main thing I thought about, like then versus now.
Yeah.
With what you said up front, which is like, I don't know. I didn't even date really ever. So on top of it, like I wouldn't even like, I had a network as well.
Yeah.
And I operated within that network.
Yeah.
And then I was married. So, I mean, it was like a little, that's the Reader's Digest version, but you know what I'm saying? So, I think the other thing that struck me really when I think about that time period or like now, love is hard. being a person in this world can be incredibly challenging. Dating games and dynamics. People are people are people. And I don't think that goes away. So like some of that, like that feels still like, I think that still resonates for me, that there are like, yeah, these games. It felt like a lot of games, which is why I didn't date.
Yeah.
Well, one of a few reasons, but that's definitely one of them.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't get on board with that. That didn't seem fun to me. Like it's like a lot of pretending, and
Yeah.
like authenticity is like the most important thing to me. And I think that's what's so challenging for me about some of the characters in this book who are, yes, based on real people, and the inauthenticity drives me crazy.
I think that goes to the next theme I wanted to just briefly mention, which is like money and status obsession. So this is sort of the concept of power couples marrying up. There's definitely an undercurrent in the book of money and status driving everything: who you date, where you go, how you're perceived. There's an emphasis on power couples, this idea that you should be looking for someone that's sort of like a little higher up than you are socially so that you can elevate in that sense. The relationships are not romantic in the book. They're like social positioning. It's not really presented in this cynical way. It's presented in this very journalistic, like this is just understood. This is the game. Everyone knows the rules. And now you figure out how well you play this game. For me, this feels like a very 90s mindset. This feels like a very like, talk about the concept of the yuppies and things like that. It doesn't feel super relatable to me. And I feel like it doesn't relate to the show. The women aren't overly obsessed with the status of the person they're with. Like Samantha doesn't care about money or status like that. She has her money and status. Miranda and Steve, like, I really don't need to say anything more. There's no social positioning happening there. Carrie has relationships of all kinds. I feel like they tend to be people who are higher up and well off. The Russian and Big being two really big ones. But I don't know that was necessarily a common thread and an intentional thread. Charlotte, of course, was the closest. She was aiming for marrying up, marrying wealthy. I don't know if any of that resonates with you. Did that feel particularly 90s? Did you have any thoughts on how the show handled that theme?
Okay, so I have so many thoughts. Let me see if I can get them together. The first thing I want to do is give you some insight into the show that I think brings it more in line with the book that's early on that we missed for you, and I'm so sorry. But there is an episode called The Caste System.
Okay.
And it specifically looks at Steve and Miranda's relationship and they have this whole conversation, the women do, about the fact that like Steve is working class or whatever they call it, which is like, I'm like, he's a bartender. I mean, like at first I hate the term working class. I hate all the class terminology. I cannot stand it. So like, I'm like, I feel very fired up for this book episode. But yeah, I just like there's a lot of that talk, and it's because it is one of the things that breaks them up the first time are these money challenges. She's a powerful attorney, and he doesn't feel like he can afford $2 beers and hot dogs for her or whatever. And he's feeling like the masculine like is being like hit at for him, the masculinity issue. And so like I think there's like a whole plot like where she has like a fancy event and she has to buy him a suit, and because all he has is a corduroy suit, and then he feels like she does buy him one and he's like, I don't want to be a taken care of man. Like, and so there's this whole thing that plays out. But that's just to give you some insight. So like it did come up on the show, and that same one was like also like Carrie being the lower status person to Big.
Okay.
And so it does like play into these themes, and they talk a lot about like the caste system and how you're like kind of born into these places and you might stay there. Like there's like, and I do think that's true to America. Like you can work your way into different, like whatever, if that's important to you. But also it's like not as easy as we like pretend it is.
Yeah.
You know, it is not like something you cannot walk in and be Steve Jobs just because like, and have been a janitor, like with no work in between.
Yeah.
You know, it is not like really how real life works. in terms of like whether or not that feels dated, I don't know. If it is dated, then explain Raya to me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
I think that there's a lot of this that exists. I think it sort of depends on, you've already hit the nail on the head. You're talking about networks, and your network is not the kind of network that's going to be like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that's the people that you've surrounded yourself with, or like you kind of already, you like are in a station of sorts. You know what I'm saying? We kind of all are. And I think that our generation has been taught, well, maybe not taught, maybe self-taught, to like kind of call that behavior out. Like, we're not really okay with it.
Yeah.
And I think it depends on where you exist, because there's like the status of like fame is huge. We love it. My God, we love fame. It's so great. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I think there is that influencer crap that happens in all of the big cities. Like, you know, like, I see it in Atlanta, the CMB scene crowd. Like, I've never been like that. I don't even want to be seen. I never have.
It's my preference to be avoided.
Yeah. So but it definitely exists. Like, you see these like enclaves of people, and there's definitely still this sociological like thing. Like, we're in group, out group people. It's like baked into our very DNA.
Yeah.
So I do think it exists. I don't know, to your point, if it's as harshly existing today as it might have been in the 1990s, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like that was a very long answer to your question, but
it works. I'll allow it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think that's all true. I think I choose to, because I exist in this world outside of that, I choose not to see the Rayas or the influencer things. But you're absolutely right. It's true. It's still there.
Like, isn't it nice though that you live in that the world, you can choose the universe that works for you.
Yes.
Isn't that nice?
That
and
is really nice.
If they want that, go take it.
Yeah.
Like, my God, just have a big field day with it.
That's so true. That's so true. I think for me, as I was reading this, I was like, God, I could never live in this world. I would never want to live in this world. And then I was like finding myself being like, but I don't want to judge these people because this might be for them. It just sounds really sad.
I don't know. I've got some judgment again on all the Epstein energy stuff.
Yeah, that's like, that notwithstanding.
I feel like I'm fine to stand in my judgment there, but I do agree with you. Like, I'm not like, whatever. People can live their life.
So I think on that note of like getting to choose where you exist, the last kind of part I wanted to talk about was the gender dynamics. So It felt to me in the book like there was a very noticeable imbalance in power, whether it was financial or social, between the men and the women, and the men ended up having more leverage. Women were certainly navigating independence, but there were some very real guardrails around that. So it wasn't like total empowerment like we saw with maybe Samantha in the show. It was more of a negotiation. Like, how do I operate within this system that's built not for me? So the women weren't entirely powerless, but they did have to be strategic to exist in this world. So I present to you that story of Walden, who you mentioned earlier. He's telling this story about a Harvard law grad. She's just a very impressive young woman. She has a grant to make a documentary. He finds her fascinating. She's the first real emotional connection he's had in a long time. Sorry, I should say he had a fiance. His fiance was out of town. That got him thinking about this girl that he had had an experience with years ago. I want to make it clear he's not like having a relationship with her now, but he always thinks about this girl from time to time, because the whole thing is he was emotionally connected to her, but it didn't work out because he didn't think she was pretty enough. His friend Steven tells the exact same story about a girl named Ellen. She wasn't marrying material. In fact, Steven says the thing about these girls who aren't beauties, they have to put sex on the table. They can't negotiate it. So these women have to learn to exist in this system, which isn't kind to them. And in the end, Walden says, I was in love in an utterly mundane way. And we now know he's not engaged to this girl. He's engaged to a totally different girl. And it was just like everything about that story was so sad that these poor young women have to figure out how to exist in this universe that doesn't think they're good enough.
Well, I think both of those men were twerps. Okay. And so I can't tell
Sure,
the
yeah.
difference between them any more than they could tell the difference between those women.
Yeah.
And one thing I will say so I can't remember whose story it was, but it was like, I thought she was hot, and then I saw her in the daylight and she was kind of chunky. And I was like,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
please let me meet this man in real life.
She
And
was
may
going
I
to get him
punch
a
him in the
beer.
face.
Yeah.
Like what in God's name? So like, if we're talking about like this idea of like whether or not women are empowered, and we're talking about like, are they like adapting to a flawed system? I kind of think it's both. There
Yeah.
are obviously some women who have adapted to a flawed system and done well. So like you mentioned Samantha specifically, I actually think that her and like maybe it's like it might be Magda. I'm telling you, I couldn't
Yeah,
keep up.
it gets
But there
lost.
was a couple of them that I felt like, even Carrie to some extent. These are women who are successful in their respective fields, like successful enough, like they're making it. And then like Samantha's like incredibly successful, and there are points in the book where you can tell like she actually has the power
Yeah.
in like a relationship, and you know, she has enough resources for them to not dictate anything to her, because resources are power,
Yeah.
right? And but I think about some of these young models that were basically playthings for older men. When you were talking about the transactional piece
Yeah.
of it, you know, they would do this because it helped further their careers. The men were doing it because it stroked their ego, I guess,
Yeah.
you know. It's a two-way street, I guess, you
Yeah.
know. But they also, you know, I think for the women, though, I think that power was short-lived. And they basically said it right there in the book. Once they're 25, they're worthless. So, you know, I think maybe there was like an opportunity where they got to 30 and they
Yeah.
were like, still okay.
If you could
Well, only
pass for
half.
25.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as you have great skin. Um, I actually think the one that struck me the hardest was the Almalita character,
Oh,
who does
yeah.
show up in the show.
Oh.
Not like this. Like she does, but they frame her as I literally think they call her like something akin to like Eurotrash. I want to be I want to be very serious here that I do not
Not your words.
support that. Yeah. But it was definitely someone who like basically flits, and her name is Almalita in the show. And it's a episode early on where she is like, she's a party girl. She kind of flits from one relationship to the next for survival. And like, so we can think of that as like, the funny thing about the patriarchy, right, is like, well, not going to say right, from my perspective, is this idea that like people see a character or a human being like this who is doing this. They are surviving by going from one relationship to the next. And they're wealthy men, you know, but if you're going to survive from one relationship to the next, I think maybe choosing a wealthier man is smarter, at least, you know. And what is her power? What is her resource? It's her looks, you know. That's what she's able to go to so that she can glom on to the power that men actually have in the society. Like, this is the truth of it, right? But the patriarchy would teach us to judge the woman.
Yes.
And isn't that interesting, right?
Yeah.
And what I did actually like about this is that the show did not do is the show just shows that like this is happy. There's never been a problem. It's all good. And what the storyline for Carrie is that actually Carrie gets Amelita hooks her up with one of her friends that's in town from Europe. And the next morning after they've slept together, he leaves like $1,000 on the nightstand because he thought she was a sex worker, excuse me. They do say hooker in the show because it was late 90s. And so that's like Carrie's undoing in an episode, essentially. What I think was so different about the show is that we got to see the tougher part of that. The fact that like in between relationships, things looked not great.
Bleak.
She needed to call Carrie to bring her 3 slices of pizza because she couldn't afford it. And when Carrie gets there, both her and her daughter, who is very young, look disheveled and like they haven't bathed in some time.
Yeah.
You know? And it does the book does it without like really an ounce of judgment. Again, to your point, this was just the world they were living in.
They were just trying to make it work.
And this is just the book we're reading. And these were just real people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tough.
It is. I think, okay, so the other thing I was going to do is kind of talk about a couple of themes that were woven throughout the book, but I feel like I just set you up earlier and just watched you tee off. Like we've talked about the modelizers concept, these men who are dating a very specific brand of woman for a very specific period of time. We've talked a little bit about that brutal honesty behind aging and desirability. You hit that 30-year-old age mark and you're just cast off. Is there anything more? I don't want to cut you off from saying anything, though. Is there anything more in there that resonated with you that you really wanted a chance to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to like real quickly like revisiting some of this stuff about like there's to your point, there's no real judgment. Like she's a sociologist and she's just looking at these things. But for me, when it's talking about the young girl stuff, and I do mean girls because they're not of age, to me this is a reminder that we collectively sometimes fool ourselves, because you read this kind of thing and then people are shocked when we find out that there are a ton of predators lording their money and power sexually over less or more vulnerable people with less resources. And all I'm left to say is, okay, sure. Somehow we missed it, but there was like a book about it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. There was a lot of male chatter in the book. Again, about like
I would say, I think one of the things that strikes me is that that's an uncomfortable concept to think about until you have to do something about it. So it's so much easier for people just to pretend like that's not happening until it becomes something they have to address.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah. I also want to say that like this fascination with age wasn't just coming from men, it was also coming from women.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
The instances with like the people who were 40 who were getting married and everybody's like, what? 2 moons rose last night. I don't know. I just thought that was funny. And so do we want to talk about whether or not so we talked about these themes, but like the relevancy today, is that worth touching on?
Yes.
What do you think?
I don't know, man. I don't know, because I'm not dating today. I don't know.
And I don't want to.
I do feel like there's so much of a truth to women, and I'm going to say women because that's what I see, but that's a theme that was here, to using what's available at your disposal to survive and to make a life that's better for yourself, whether you know, in the case of Amelita, she has a child. Ray, I think, was another character we were introduced to that's a very similar Amelita style person, just more US based and less international, but similar. I think she also had a child that she had to provide for. And so I think that's very real even today. And I think that hopefully there's a lot more acceptance of other women on that. Like, I'm all for you using whatever tools are at your disposal to negotiate this really crappy system that exists in front of us. So like, I really don't begrudge women who use their looks to get ahead in life. I don't begrudge women who, other than just like the sheer lack of humanity of it, using a man to get ahead, someone they really don't care about, but using them to get ahead. I don't really judge that because I feel like you've got to use what's available to you. I feel like that still happens now. And I think maybe just it's less surprising to people that it exists, and maybe it's becoming more of a, I don't know, a culturally acceptable thing.
Wait, it's becoming more culturally acceptable for women to use?
For women to use whatever, whatever they need.
That's such an interesting point. Yeah, I mean, certainly it's still commodified. I think when I thought about this and like beauty standards and like comparing it today, what I thought about is like every time we take a step forward and it's like some sort of body positivity, these are things that you and I have talked about before and here on the podcast and separately. It's like there's some sort of beauty standard that comes online, literally now, that like just throws like another like hurdle or like a spoke, like a whatever in the wheel, you know? And like where it's just something that you just can't attain again. When I think about the relevancy, going back to the status thing again, there's something in here that's giving trad wife culture a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And the thing is like we were talking in our last episode about one of the problems being a lack of empathy. I've got zero problem with someone wanting to be in the home.
Mm-hmm.
I got zero problem with that. But it's getting mixed up with something else that's an aesthetic that does have something that, like, these are not people with money problems. There is a wealth and a security here that is not attainable for everyone. And then a judgment, I think, intentionally or unintentionally, on people who may not have the ability to do that, as if they're like, as if this is some sort of feminism thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's not good.
Yeah.
You know, we're not leaving room for each other.
Yeah. I mean, just again, that comes back to like different life choices. Even if financially you could afford to stay home and you choose not to, like that's not, that's a life choice.
What they want to do.
It's completely irrelevant to you.
Right.
Yeah. It's that the trad wife culture is wacky in the sense of just like, not in the concept of it, but just this cultural context where we're back to judging each other for working.
It's the rubber band effect, right? And that's what I feel a lot in society right now. I think we were moving at such a clip.
Yeah.
With progress. And unfortunately some of that progress came with judgment. Yeah. On the people who weren't caught up to whatever the progress was progressing to. And like, because that happens, and sometimes there was maybe some condescension, and like, and I think that rubber band effect has just, man, we're really feeling that snapback right now in a way that is, whew,
it hurts.
It's visceral a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
But I think it's important to come back and read something like this, see where the culture was, and like maybe ask ourselves, was something great before? Is this what we want to return?
Was that the dream?
Again? I'm not pointing out anything specific.
It's a hypothetical
no particular
question.
Campaign slogans. I'm just saying, let's be really careful about what we look back at with rose-colored glasses.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Fair point. Okay. Was there anything in here that made you raise your eyebrows?
You know, for anything outside of what I've already talked about. Not really. Not that we haven't covered. I mean, I think like just my general disdain for like the way that people are treating each other in this book. I think I've made inherently clear with that, like, because at some point, like, I don't want to, like, I'm not trying to crap on the, like, because these are real people, you know, I just like, I feel like such a disconnection between the individuals in this book. Like you said, you already hit it. Like, it just made me sad.
My note says just the general desolation of it all.
I think that's right.
What would never, is there anything in here that you think never would have made it into the TV show, the HBO version of this story?
There was like not a lot. There was quite a bit of closeted talk in this.
Ah, yeah.
Like Skipper and the Bone.
Yeah.
Like the book brings it up repeatedly, but more in like a gossipy way,
Yeah.
like would have been in the 90s, because like, you know, people necessarily didn't have the permission to come out.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, by permission, I mean society and culture permission, cultural permission. And so I think that, maybe that's why it didn't make it into the show already.
Yeah.
Because you had like Darren Star there to put the kibosh on that.
Yeah.
Even then. But I definitely think that's too dated to go in today.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't have anything, but I like that read. Yeah.
I had such like a for a lot of this that like I know that guys, it's not secret. Like Nikki has an outline. She threw me a bone, so I would know what to say.
Not the bone, but a bone.
Not the bone. Also he does appear in the show.
Oh, okay.
By the way. So very different and similar. I don't know. You should maybe go watch that one, but it's not one of my favorites, but it might be interesting for you for the compare and contrast. Book Carrie, like things I would have liked to have seen or loved to have seen in HBO. Did you have anything?
I was just going to say that Aspen trip at the end of the book would have been good to see in the show.
Yeah, like to see her and Big actually go. Do we ever see her and Big go anywhere? There's the threat of the Caribbean trip, which actually is in the book.
Yeah.
But they don't make it.
Yeah.
And I don't think we ever see them go anywhere.
Not in what I saw. But I would have loved to have seen that. I would have loved to have seen like the interplay between all the characters. There was like a decadence to Aspen that I feel like would have been super interesting to watch. Mm-hmm. I would have liked that.
So yes, I agree. I think I wasn't able to articulate that the way I wanted to, but this happens on the Aspen trip, which is when Ray comes and sits on Big's lap.
Oh.
And Carrie is like much more like in your face in the book.
Yeah.
Like, I actually feel like Carrie of the show has trouble asserting herself.
Yeah.
A lot of times, right?
Yeah.
So book Carrie does seem to have like party mode on all the way up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she's like, we do see that side come out in Carrie sometimes, but she's really not like that a lot in the show. She goes on little benders, but they're tiny. They're tiny for someone who also had a bender or two in their life. And so she's also like definitely meaner in the book.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
And a part of me kind of wants to see that play out in a show because then it's not real life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I kind of like, it would have been interesting, I think, to see her like go after that woman and eviscerate her the way that she did.
Yeah.
Just because I almost would have liked to have seen the way Sarah Jessica Parker would have played.
I was going to say, do you think Sarah Jessica Parker could have done that?
Okay, I will take you back to First Wives Club. And when she basically tells Bette Midler that she's too big to be wearing a dress.
Yeah, okay.
So,
maybe. Okay, I'll allow it.
Yeah.
I'll allow it.
Yeah, she's warm, but she's still an actor.
That's true.
I'd like to see it. Yeah.
Anything else?
Not from that, no.
Okay, I'm about to bring this puppy home, so if you have parting thoughts, now's a good time to share them.
Oh, like any parting thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
You like this big space? Sorry, I have like...
I know, I reorganized things.
You did, on the fly. I like that.
Our thoughts, like I'm trying to make sure we don't keep harping on the same thing.
I think you did a great job. I think I've covered pretty much everything that's like really was hitting me in my heart.
Making it hard for you to keep turning that page.
A little bit, yeah. I was like, oh no, the world is bad.
Right. So, like, obviously we've made it clear that the original book next to Sex and the City, the show, it's not a straight adaptation. It's almost a reinterpretation. They're working kind of from the same world. They're working with some of the same dynamics, but they're telling kind of two completely different stories. The book is sharper. It's observational. It's more blunt about how dating and status work. It's not trying to comfort you. It's just laying things out. The show softened a little bit of that harshness. The show offered warmth through friendship, humor, giving us characters we get really attached to. It takes some of those same dynamics, but makes them livable, maybe even hopeful at times, which is not a word I would use to describe this book. I think we've talked about sort of the flip of that is, though, maybe is there a little bit of realness that gets lost in translation in the show. The book is willing to sit in uncomfortable parts. It doesn't wrap it up neatly, try to give you one of those Carrie's final thoughts. It really just kind of puts it there, says this is how it is, and just leaves you sitting in it. Sometimes the column just ends with just a thought. There's no ending thought. There's no summation. It's just like an observation, and this is how it is. I will say this was not my favorite read. I come back to, I think it wasn't how it was intended to be consumed. But also I feel like it just was gritty in a way that I don't love. That's not enjoyable for me. But I think that being able to talk about some of these themes, honestly and openly, probably is helpful. So I don't know. There's something.
So there's that.
There's that.
I too enjoy some sugar with my medicine.
Yeah. Right.
I think, or like, give me a character. Like, I needed someone, and maybe it's because I do want to say this. Okay. It would be really hard to soften yourself up if you're writing about yourself.
Not me.
Just think about the way.
Not me. She was a delight. Wonderful. Everyone wanted to be her friend. Did I mention she was pretty, witty, wise?
Well, everyone in this story has to be pretty.
That's true. And skinny. Don't forget skinny.
Right, and young, or you're tossed out on your ass.
Yep.
So just you remember that. But like, I am remembering it. But I think like maybe it is kind of, I guess it's good that she didn't make herself sound good and everybody else sound like crap.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, I guess there is something like at least like honest about that, know, she didn't try and improve herself just to look better. So I think that's kind of nice, but like, I need someone to root for.
Yeah.
When I'm reading or when I'm watching something. And I think because of that, because she was trying to do that pullback look, and because it was like no personal impressions really, I think that just made it hard for me to connect in too. And if I can't connect in, then I don't know what to do with it, you know, except for this conversation that we've had right here.
For an hour and 17 minutes.
That's true. I could only give this an hour and 17 minutes of my life, Nikki.
That's all.
And your life.
That's all. And the 8 hours it took me to read the book. Don't forget that. Don't forget that.
Yes. Never will.
All right. Well, I guess that's it. It's the end of our book club. Our next episode is going to be watching the series finale.
Yay.
And just like that, you all know the drill. www.sweetteatv.com. We're all over the socials. You can come tell us how wonderful and not devoid of emotion, of feeling, of love and warmth we are. We're wonderful. And that's this week's Extra Sugar.